In this video, we're going to review the metric system, or the SI measurements. So mass is measured in kilograms. That's the SI unit. Remember, SI stands for System International, or the International System of Measurements. So as a scientific community, when we talk about mass, we tend to talk about it in kilograms because everybody else in the world is also discussing it in kilograms. However, kilograms is a very large amount, so when we are doing labs in our class, we tend to talk more about grams because we don't want to use a kilogram because it's too big. So we tend to shorten it down to just a gram. Length is measured in meters. So during the Olympics, when they're giving our distances during track and field, it's usually given to us in meters, not miles. A lot of times, though, meter is too big. You can estimate the length of a meter by the width of a standard doorway. So a lot of times we also talk about centimeters because that's more roughly like the size of going from your first knuckle to your second knuckle on your finger. Volume is a derived unit, so it doesn't have an SI unit to go with it like our kilograms and our meters. Instead, we have to derive it from length. So when we think about geometry and we think about a cube, we can find the volume of a cube by measuring the length, the width, and the height, and then multiplying those all together. So one of the derived units for volume is centimeters cubed. So centimeters without an exponent is just the length, but centimeters cubed would be the unit for volume. Now, that is usually only used for solids. If we have a liquid, we tend to use a graduated cylinder, and so we measure that in milliliters. Now, we have a comparison between milliliters and centimeters cubed, and 1 milliliter is equal to 1 centimeters cubed. So you can really interchange both of those things. Sometimes you might not see milliliters, you might see liters. When we're talking about gases, we have to talk about a large volume of gas because the molecules are so spread out. So sometimes we use liters, sometimes we use milliliters, sometimes we use centimeters cubed when we're discussing volume. Now, if we have an irregular shaped object, like my piece of rebar down here, we can't use either of those scenarios to find the volume. So instead we use water displacement. So we take our graduated cylinder, we note how much water is in it, we add our rebarb, and then we can see how much water was displaced. So water displacement, you take the volume of the water and the object together and you subtract just the volume of the water. So in our graduated cylinder right now, we have 10, 11, 12, 13, about 13 and a half milliliters. We add our rebarb and the water goes up to about 22.5 milliliters. So if we subtract out the water, then we're just left with the volume of the rebarb to be 9.0 milliliters. Prefixes. So when we were talking about the SI unit for mass, we said it was kilogram, but we tend to only use gram. Those are the prefixes: kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centi, milli, and you should be able to convert between those prefixes. So as a review for the prefixes, K is kilo, and that means 1,000. H is hecto, and that means 100. DA is deca, 10. U is your base unit. That would be your meters, liters, grams. Any other unit without a prefix, it could be joule if we needed it to be for energy, or seconds if we're talking time. So anything that's without a prefix is your U for unit. D is deci, that's a tenth. C is centi, that's a hundredth, and then M is milli for a millionth. So all we have to do is move the decimal between these, since these are all based on 10. That's what's nice about the metric system. An easy way to remember this order is King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. You have all of the letters there. You just have to remember that the first D is your DA. So King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. We will be using this a lot throughout the year, so make sure that you understand how to move the decimal around, and we're going to practice with some examples. So first we have 5 meters to millimeters. Notice that it's starting off with no prefix. If it's starting off with no prefix, no letter in front of the unit, then that is your base unit. We're trying to get it to millimeters, so that means we're trying to get to the M. So the M up here is a prefix. It has to be followed by another letter in your unit in order to be used. So then how many places over is the M from the U? Once, twice, 3 places. So 3 letters over means we're going to move the decimal 3 places, and we're going to the right because the M is to the right of the U. So we would take our decimal and we would move it once, twice, 3 times. Because there's no numbers here, we're just going to fill those in with zeros, and 5 meters is 5,000 millimeters. Another example, we have 21.6 deciliters, and we're trying to go to kiloliters. So we're starting at the D, and we're trying to go to the K. So then we count the number of places over, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's to the left. The K is to the left of the D. So this time we're going to move the decimal to the left. So we'd move it once between the 1 and the 2, twice to get it in front of the 2, 3, 4. So we're going to have to add 2 zeros in front of the 2. So our answer then is 0.00216. Another example, we have 12 milliliters and we're trying to get to decaliters. So we're starting at the M this time. Remember that M in front means the milli that's in our King Henry. And we're trying to go to DA. So we would go 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the left. So we take our decimal, move it once in between, twice to get to the front of the 1, 3, 4. So again, we're adding 2 zeros to the front, and we get 0.0012 decaliters. We're going to try one more time. Here we have centiliters going to milliliters. So we're starting at the C, and we're going to the M. So that is once to the right. So we're going to take our decimal, and we're going to move it once to the right. And so we would have 95 milliliters.